Two tails, one head. Yin yang. Two tails, one head, yin yang. Two heads, one tail. Yang yin. Two heads, one tail, yang yin. 2 heads, 1 tail, young yin. Two tails, 1 head, young yang. Our bottom trigram will be read as solid, solid, broken. This is the trigram. Dewy, lake or marsh. Dewy is lake and marsh, abundant energy that teems with life. She is the impulse to communicate, share, and exchange, and delights in both inner and outer conversation. She brings things into circulation and gives them voice. This is the sheer enjoyment of participating in life to the full, expressing ourselves and hearing others and satisfying our desires. Lake is the youngest daughter, spirit of the fertile west and of autumn. The top trigram will be read as broken solid. This is Gen Mountain. Some of them I have memorized. The mountain is still. It is a limit where you must stop. Gen brings each cycle to an end, defining a space where we can recognize, assimilate, and complete our experience. He creates a personal still center amid change where we can retreat for perspective and a firm foundation for new growth. He is well-grounded, confident, and of independent spirit. He is still and knows. Mountain is the youngest son, child of maturity. In the cycle of directions and seasons, he is the northeast, late winter approaching spring, the pivot between cycles. Gen Mountain above dewy, lake, or marsh give us the hexagram. (41). We didn't receive any changing lines, so this will be the only hexagram we receive, which highly emphasizes it. In I-ming's Taoist I Ching, we will get the title to our hexagram 41. Reduction, removing acquired conditioning, stilling mundane attraction. We will start out reading from Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future, which is a nice introductory I Ching commentary. When we approach the I Ching to consult the oracle, the question we bring to it will always have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. Real quick, got this key at Port Gamble, really old key, and it's got all these S's on this side of it, but when you flip it, it's got one S. So I look at it as like the several small selves on the one side, and then the one self on this side. 41, reduction, Hilary Barrett calls decreasing. Key questions: why do you want to make such an offering? How much is truly asked of you? Could this be simpler? Oracle: decreasing, there's truth and confidence from the source, good fortune, not a mistake. There can be constancy. Fruitful to have a direction to go. How to use this? 2 simple baskets may be used for the offering. The early Chinese character for decreasing shows a hand with a vessel. Decreasing, you pour out what you have in offering. You focus your faith and hope on something higher than your everyday life and sacrifice lower things to this. When you do so with an undivided heart, it opens the flow of good fortune and your life becomes lighter and simpler. Yi offers reassurance. Even when you have little to give, making offerings is not wrong. Trusting your insight and persevering in your chosen direction, you understand why you are doing this, rather than dwelling on what you are giving up. You may still wonder how you can do it or how much you are expected to give, but the offering need only be modest, not hundreds of animals, but just 2 baskets. You are not asked to give beyond your means. Image: below the mountain is the lake, decreasing. A noble one curbs anger and restrains desires. A noble one, when he gives things up, is not without anger and desires. He just keeps them under control, solid as the mountain that contains the lake and limits the flow of its waters. Without the evaporating waters, the mountainside would be barren. Without the mountain, the water would dissipate and be lost. Together, they create a complete landscape, emotions sustaining growth in higher experience, and control deepening your emotional capacity. Sequence: decreasing follows from hexagram 40, release. Letting things take their time naturally means letting go, and so decreasing follows. To release ties and bonds and relinquish control is also a loss, one that makes life simpler. Pair: decreasing forms a pair with hexagram 42, increasing. Decreasing, increasing, the beginnings of abundance and decline. They belong together in a natural cycle, a free flow of giving and receiving, like breathing. To create space for new blessings, you need to empty things out. Forgot to take out the garbage. Speaking of emptying things out, I have to do that directly after this. Next, we will look at I Ching's I-ming's Taoist I Ching. He was a Taoist adept, and he wrote this in 1796, and it's quite alchemical in nature. Hexagram 41, reduction. Reduction with sincerity is very auspicious, impeccable. It should be correct. It is beneficial to go somewhere. What is the use of the 2 bowls? They can be used to receive. Explanation: reduction means diminishing excess. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is mountain, still, and below is lake, joyous. Having something to rejoice over, yet immediately stilling it. By stilling the joy, there is no errant thought. In the body of the hexagram, in the 2nd and 5th lines, strength and flexibility are balanced. Emptiness and fullness are in accord. Strength does not become rambunctious. Flexibility does not become weakness. Diminishing what is excessive, adding to what is insufficient, thus it is called reduction. This hexagram represents the existence of increase within reduction. It follows on the previous hexagram, halting. In halting, one can stop where there is danger, preserving the primordial Tao in the midst of the temporal. But if you want to preserve the primordial, it is necessary to remove acquired conditioning. And to remove acquired conditioning means to travel the path of reduction. However, reduction as a path means not following desires, but stopping desires. Many people cannot be sincere in it. If one cannot be sincere, one may start but will not finish. Then not only will one fail to gain good fortune, one will also bring on blame. If one can be sincere, every thought is true. Sincerity in the mind naturally shows in action. Then good fortune comes even though one does not try to bring it about. As one does not bring about fault, fault is naturally non-existent. But even though sincerity in reduction is certainly auspicious and surely impeccable, it is most important that sincerity be correct, that reduction be correct. People in the world who contemplate voidness stick to quietude, forget about people, forget about their own bodies, and go on like this all their lives without change are certainly sincere about reduction, but they are faithful to what they should not be faithful to, and reduce what they should not reduce. Thus there is decrease with increase, which is still faulty. So if one can be correct in sincerity, discern whether it is right or wrong, distinguish whether it is false or true, understand it in the mind, and prove it in actual events, there is somewhere to go, to the benefit of all. But while the benefit of going somewhere is beneficial insofar as sincerity is correct and reduction is correct, actual practice in real life is most important to finish what has been started. As long as one has not yet reached the serene, equanimous realm of the middle way, work cannot be stopped. One must daily reduce for the sake of the Tao, daily increasing one's accomplishment, reducing and reducing again, increasing and increasing again, until there is no more to be reduced and no more to be increased. So strength and softness correspond. Inside and outside merge with the Tao. In perfect goodness, without evil, wholly integrated with the design of nature, only then is the work of reduction and increase no longer needed. Therefore, the text says, what is the use of the two bowls? They can be used to receive. A bowl is something hollow and round. The two bowls are the balance of strength and flexibility, represented by the second and fifth lines in correspondence. When strength and flexibility are balanced, there is flexibility in strength and strength in flexibility. Strength and flexibility are as one. The vitalities of the second and fifth lines subtly join and congeal, returning to the basis, going back to the origin. The spiritual embryo takes on form. And from this, one receives the bliss of freedom and non-striving. One's fate now depends on oneself, not on heaven. Be sincere in reduction, and within reduction there is increase. This is no small matter. We'll also look at the commentary section in Lu I-ming's Taoist I Ching. Hexagram 41 reduction. Mountain above, lake below. There is a lake under a mountain, reducing it. Thus does the superior person eliminate wrath and cupidity. Reduction means decrease. Above is mountain, below is lake. There is a lake under a mountain. The mountain is above, the lake is below. As the mountain is invaded by the moisture of the lake, it does not rise high. And as the lake is limited by the mountain, it does not overflow. There is gain within reduction. This is the image of reduction. What superior people see in this is that the violence in people erupts as wrath, the self-interest in people emerges as cupidity. Once wrath and cupidity arise, they corrode natural reality, so their harm is very great. Therefore, superior people control their wrath. striving to change their temperament so that their nature and feelings are harmonious and peaceful, as steady as a mountain. They quell cupidity, striving to eliminate wandering thoughts so that their minds die and their spirits live, still and clear as a lake without waves. Wrath is something that impedes the way. Cupidity is a bandit that disturbs the way. If wrath and cupidity are not completely cleared up, even if the great way is in sight, it cannot be fully accomplished. Therefore, the first step in practicing the Tao is to eliminate wrath and cupidity. When one reduces away anger and desire, the work after that will be unobstructed, and there is hope for the way ahead. This is why Confucians consider it essential to conquer the self and return to propriety. Buddhists consider reduction of myriad phenomena to emptiness fundamental, and Taoists consider self-refinement to set up the foundation as primary. The sages of all three teachings first taught people to get rid of personal wrath and cupidity. The Taoist master, Zhu Yang, said, "If you want to cultivate the restorative elixir to perfection, first you must refine yourself and master your mind." Refining oneself means refining away this wrath and cupidity. Mastering the mind means to control the mind and not give rise to wrath and cupidity. If students are able, while in the midst of reduced reality, to reverse themselves and reduce falsehood, then it will not be difficult to practice the Tao. Gotta check yourself before you wreck yourself. We will next look into, I don't know why I showed you, Starry, Starry Night. Look into the Gnostic Book of Changes by James Dekorne. He is a practitioner of the Tao, and he's synthesized several I-ming commentaries in one helpful location, which I've left links to in the description box below. He gives quotes from people like Carl Jung and sources such as the Kabbalah, and he also sums things up with his own editor's notes and paraphrases at the end. He calls Hexagram 41 compensating sacrifice. Other titles might be decrease, the symbol of lessening, loss, diminishing, reduction, diminution of excesses, decline, bringing into balance, dynamic balance, sacrifice, a quote from D.F. Hook, not necessarily material loss, can mean decreasing the lower self to increase the higher. Judgment, leg, compensating sacrifice means that sincerely maintained rectitude brings great success. Action is appropriate if one's sacrifice is sincere. Even 2 baskets of grain, though there be nothing else, may be offered. Wilhelm/Baines, decrease combined with sincerity brings about supreme good fortune without blame. One may be persevering in this. It furthers one to undertake something. How is this to be carried out? One may use 2 small bowls for the sacrifice. Blofeld, loss accompanied by confidence, sublime good fortune, and no error. It is favorable to have in view some goal or destination. If there is doubt as to what to use for the sacrifice, 2 small bowls will suffice. Lu, decrease with sincerity, great good fortune, no blame. One may continue. It is beneficial to go somewhere. How can this decrease with sincerity be done? One may use 2 bamboo containers of grain for a sacrifice. Ritsuma/Karcher, diminishing, possessing conformity, spring significant, without fault, permitting trial, harvesting, possessing directed going, asking why, having availing of, 2 platters permit availing of presenting. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of sacrifice and loss. It emphasizes that lessening yourself and decreasing your involvements is the adequate way to handle it. The image, leg, the image of a mountain, and beneath it the waters of a marsh form compensating sacrifice. The superior man, in accordance with this, restrains his wrath and represses his desires. Wilhelm/Baines. At the foot of the mountain, the lake, the image of decrease. Thus, the superior man controls his anger and restrains his instincts. Blofeld. This hexagram symbolizes a marshy lake at the foot of a mountain. The superior man keeps his anger under control and is moderate in his desires. Liu. The lake beside the mountain symbolizes decrease. The superior man curbs his indignation and restricts his desires. Ritzema/Karcher. Below mountain possessing marsh, diminishing. A chansu, or chief son or superior person, or the sage, uses curbing anger to block the appetites. Cleary 1. There is a lake under a mountain, reducing it. Thus does the superior person eliminate wrath and cupidity. Cleary 2. Lake below a mountain, reducing. Thus do developed people eliminate anger and greed. Wu. There is a marsh below the mountain. This is loss. Thus the chansi, or chief son or superior person, mitigates his anger and restrains his desires. I want to say, before it slips my mind, I did a collaboration reading with Helen of Eye of the Serpent Tarot and Timeline Traveler Tarot. On her channel, Timeline Traveler Tarot is where she will post it, and once she does, I'll post it onto my community page. But in that reading, not to ruin anything, but part of it talked about forgiveness and that being essential, and that consequences need not follow some sort of overstepping of bounds. It doesn't have to lead one to the other necessarily in every case. And in here, it talks about restraining wrath and cupidity, and the Junsi mitigates his anger and restrains his desires. Something that I think helps with that would potentially be, the concept of forgiveness. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. In compensating, and I guess, I don't want to ruin it. Now you'll just have to see. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. I don't know what do was about. Is this the world's smallest violin idea? Maybe that was my subconscious telling you that I don't care. You'll have to be curious. Confucius/Leg. In compensating sacrifice, the lower trigram is diminished to increase the upper, and the flow is upward. The two baskets of grain accord with the time. There is a time when the strong should be diminished and the weak strengthened. Decrease and increase, overflowing and emptiness, take place in harmony with the demands of the time. Leg. Cheng Tzu says, every diminution and repression of what we have in excess to bring it into accordance with right and reason is comprehended under compensating sacrifice. If there is sincerity in doing this, it will lead to success and happiness, and even if the offering is small, it will be accepted. The Konghasi editors say, what is meant by diminishing in this hexagram is the regulation of expenditure or contribution according to the time. This would vary in a family according to its poverty or wealth, and in a state according to the abundance or scantiness of its resources. If one supplements the insufficiency of his offering with the abundance of his sincerity, the insignificance of his two baskets will not be despised. The waters of a marsh are continually rising up in vapor to bedew the hill above it, and thus increase its verdure. What is taken from the marsh gives increase to the hill. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. A sacrifice creates equilibrium. The superior man sacrifices his appetites to a higher principle. The traditional name for this hexagram is decrease, but the lines in commentary all describe a compensating exchange of forces to attain equilibrium. The idea of sacrifice is mentioned in the judgment, and that also might make a good title, though the image of two baskets of grain suggests a balancing scale, a compensating device. In this hexagram, the flow of energy moves from below upwards. The waters of the lake or marsh are dispersed to enrich the mountain. In psychological terms, we think of the ego sacrificing or decreasing its autonomy to achieve psychic equilibrium with the self. We forfeit something valuable to obtain something even more valuable. Without this quid pro quo, the concept of sacrifice is meaningless and irrational. A quote from Jung in Transformation Symbolism in the Mass. A sacrifice is meant to be a loss, so that one may be sure that the egoistic claim no longer exists. Therefore, the gift should be given as if it were being destroyed. But since the gift represents myself, I have in that case destroyed myself, given myself away without expectation of return. Yet, looked at in another way, this intentional loss is also a gain. For if you can give yourself, it proves that you possess yourself. Nobody can give what he has not got. Compare the image message from hexagram number 15, temperance, with the notion of a compensating balance. The superior man, in accordance with this, diminishes his excess to augment his insufficiencies, thus creating a just balance. We are reminded of another temperance, the 14th arcanum of the tarot, which depicts an angel pouring water from one vessel into another, compensating. A comparison of its symbolism with that of hexagram number 41 yields many insights. They're talking about hexagram 11, temperance. In it is Kuan heaven, all solid lines, below Kun earth, all broken lines. And it's like the Hierosgamos. And we got it 3 times in a row, 2 readings ago. And then 4 readings before that, we had temperance as well. And what was interesting about that is then we eventually got the real Hierosgamos, hexagram 63, right following that. Anyway, there's been an interesting series of readings that have all kind of flown together in an interesting way. Quote from R. Wang in the Kabbalistic Tarot. The path of temperance leads from the personality, ego, to the higher self. The whole experience is one of preparation of the personality or ego and the body in which it is operating to deal with an influx of light which would be devastating to a system unready to handle such energy. Most important here is the monitoring of progress, the continual testing from above. It is the angel here which is at once the higher self and the initiatory forces of nature, which pours the elixir from vase to vase. This is an ongoing process of testing, measuring to see how much the physical vehicle can bear. Without belaboring the point, we can see that all sacrifice is a kind of remuneration. I think he swapped the letters in that on accident. It couldn't be otherwise in an interconnected universe. The image instruction for the superior man to control his anger is also echoed in the temperance card. This relates to an aspect of the mysteries only rarely discussed, and certainly germane to the 25th path, the Kabbalistic equivalent of the relationship between lines 1 and 4 in this hexagram. This is the very real hostility often felt by the student toward the path itself, as he works day after day and seems to be getting nowhere. Such hostility and frustration is in itself a major test. It is part and parcel of the work prior to the emergence of inner proofs. Decrease with sincerity, Lu refers to one's continuous sacrifice for the goals of the work, and curbing anger, Ritzimo/Karcher, is how one handles the archetypal forces evoked when the decrease seems endless and you've yet to receive anything in return. Like any other hexagram, compensating sacrifice can symbolize an infinity of possible situations, but psychologically speaking, we can first regard it as an image of sacrifice for the purpose of attaining a balance of power within the psyche. Without the sacrificial devotion of the ego, the self cannot attain its will, and if the self can't make it, the ego is doomed by default. We will get a randomly drawn verse from the Tao Te Ching while we sum the reading up. And immediately what comes to mind is sacrifice. In terms of even a ritualistic practice that anchors in an initiation, if you did it with an object that you later could keep, for instance, that could become kind of like an object of power for you. But the second line can be related similar to like the ego in the stack of the lines of the hexagram. And the fifth, they correspond, could be related to, it could be called the line of the ruler or the higher self. So this idea of the trigram of dewy lake or marsh, which is like joy and communication exchanged between people, or inner communication, and enjoyment of life, just the finer things, the bliss of being around people you care about and that interaction. But also could be described as like emotions welling up, those kinds of things like joy. And then our top trigram is Gen Mountain, which is a limit where you must stop. It provides, let me read it again. It's not fresh in my mind. For some reason, I feel like it's important to know. The mountain is still. It is a limit where you must stop. Jen brings each cycle to an end, defining a space where we can recognize, assimilate, and complete our experience. He creates a personal still center amid change, where we can retreat for perspective and a firm foundation for new growth. He is well-grounded, confident, and of independent spirit. He is still and knows. Makes me feel like maybe that's why the tarot card, the Hermit, is on a mountain. Those things, he is still and knows, makes me think of that. His little light, he's got that inner light. Mountain is the youngest son, child of maturity, and the cycle of directions and seasons. He is the northeast, late winter, approaching spring, the pivot between cycles. One of the comparisons to the two trigrams had to do with the mountain gave like a firm, stable area to contain the waters of the lake. And the lake, when it was bedewing the hillside of the mountain, would allow the mountain to not have to be bare. Things could grow on the side of this mountain because of the lake. And then relating it to inner emotions not welling up too much, out of control, knowing when to stop them. And this actually increases our ability to, it wouldn't stop them to the point where it eliminates them, but creates an environment where things are safe to be expressed in a way that's healthy, in a way where maybe there's a natural flow of that idea of forgiveness, or just a sense of goodwill, where to maintain peace, there has to be this sense of being hemmed in and closed in such a way where the idea of chaos can be kept on the outside. Going back to the idea of fractals, that idea of the edges of the Mandelbrot set, for instance, where beyond this is just these lines and these points that form, the natural kind of spiraling off ways that flowers bloom especially thinking of like sunflowers, things like that. But any of those patterns in nature that you could relate to that idea of a fractal. It's like achieving nature's balance in a way where things that might be held at odds in some ways, like the idea of somebody being incredibly strict, for instance, that Jen Mountain concept, but doing so for a nurturing reason, that hemming in of the emotions, not to restrain them completely so that they're not felt, but so that they don't overwhelm everything. And that would be kind of like that concept of restraining wrath and cupidity. And the emotions welling up, there are things like benevolence and kindness that can come out of our emotions, but also things like wrath that can well up and feel like that's maybe not being returned to us the way we're giving it out, or for whatever reason we may think that things aren't going the way we like. I like psychologically how it breaks it down just to one person, and how these inner archetypes, if you want to call them that, can be balanced together in such a way where we could stop, battles or war in our external world in whatever way that looks like for us, and obviously in the way that it looks in the wider global scale currently. The battle is first and foremost internal, and I like what this magician guy said that I just posted one of his videos. I just recently ran across him, so forgive me, I don't remember his name, but he was talking about, now I lost the thought, finding out why you want to do anything that you do and to not waste your time. I think the video had to do with a certain amount of things that he learned after the course of like 25 years of doing magic. Not magic tricks, but like ritualistic magic. And he said that when working it and going for a particular goal, it's beneficial to look at the reasoning behind what you're going after. And that if you want to save some serious time, not just getting a bunch of things that you thought you wanted to fill some hole or lack in your life that oftentimes your conscious mind thinks you want or could use in a way that would heal you, maybe, if you want to call it that. But you could be rung around in circles for a great long time, chasing down desires, which is not exactly what we do. If you want to look at it in terms of I won't say necessarily capitalism, but the marketplace in general, in the way we can turn everything into a commodity. That tendency that we have to buy or sell. There's a certain amount of that makes sense, and a certain amount of it that I think there's a serious disrespect for the things that we're acquiring, and a disrespect for how they're being acquired and what that means towards a greater balance that should be maintained. And that has to do with the greed, right? The cupidity. How do we restrain this lake so that all of the essence of that we really, really do want to protect? Joy is something that should be protected because it's not something that we think it is. It doesn't happen in the ways that we think it happens. We think that by hoarding and buying and selling at the rate that we do it, at almost a addict's pace, that this is somehow going to fix something, but we always find out that it never does. And so his advice had to do with doing the inner work and figuring out, tracing it all the way back and say, well, why do I want this? And does it need to appear in this exact way? Could it also potentially appear in some other way? And you might even lose the desire for the thing altogether if you can put yourself in the place of acquiring what you're after and what that means going forward once you have it. And if that really was the call of your soul, so to speak, or the self activating in you, and you, if you want to look at it in terms of shout out to a friend, but like a transformer being activated. April 44. Check out our channel. But that idea of being activated and lit up from within, that's a joy that's sustainable and something that should be nurtured. And so in I-ming's Taoist teaching, the talk about reduction is reducing and reducing and reducing the things that should be reduced, and increasing and increasing and increasing the things that should be increased until you reach that state of that bliss, that point where there's not overly protectiveness going on that squelches out all of the emotion, and there's also not over emotion where there's just outbursts of rage. It's especially, I think, important to get those kind of balancing points figured out internally with the amount of energy you work with towards the beginning of the path. As you go on, I feel like energy increases and increases and increases, and it becomes that much more important to have a good sense of balance, of strength within flexibility and flexibility within strength, and kind of like the edges of a river where you're not stopping the river, just directing it in the way that it naturally, I want to say, but naturally, kind of guided at the same time with like a goal in mind, using the changes of the time and nature to sort of get towards that course, but not being so rigid that we demand that the flow of the river be, in our timing and take the curves that we want it to take. Anywho's, "52 will be the verse we will read from the Tao Te Ching. My copy is by Jia Fu Fang and Jane English. Before we do that, just want to sum the whole thing up with what I-ming's Taoist Te Ching said, his little quick synopsis of 41, was that? Yeah. Jeez. Reduction, removing acquired conditioning, stilling mundane attraction. 52 of the Tao Te Ching. The beginning of the universe is the mother of all things. Knowing the mother, one also knows the sons. Knowing the sons, yet remaining in touch with the mother, brings freedom from the fear of death. Keep your mouth shut. Guard the senses, and life is ever full. Open your mouth, always be busy, and life is beyond hope. Seeing the small is insight. Yielding to force is strength. Using the outer light, return to insight, and in this way be saved from harm. This is learning constancy. For sure.